Welcome to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset, the leading data and analytics company for the cannabis industry.
So I know I'm a bit behind, but I was just catching up on the most recent Curb Your Enthusiasm season. And there's this whole narrative with Larry David trying to pitch a show called Young Larry. And they're hoping to cast Woody Harrelson. And, somehow Woody Harrelson finds out that, Larry David is drinking cream. And so Larry David has to convince him it's from his organic farm, his quote unquote woke farm, very progressive farm. And he drags him out to this farm in LA that's not Larry David's farm, but just somebody else's farm that he uses. But what's funny is Woody Harrelson the whole time, completely on brand, walking around in a bucket hat covered in cannabis leaves, right? The whole time. And with this latest news that I want to talk about, his new store in West Hollywood, I feel like it was a completely missed opportunity for product placement, promotion, but at least he's on brand, right? At least he's still, out there carrying the torch. So really cool to see. Obviously, it was great. If you haven't seen the latest season, it's just better and better every time. But, having Woody Harrelson there is awesome. And this store that he opened looks awesome. So let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Woody fan. I can't wait to watch that episode, and I think it's cool that he's really officially getting into the space. So.
Yeah, long time coming, right? And I think we've talked about celebrity brands in the past and all of that. And the greatest thing about his brand is that it's authentic, right? He's been an advocate for a long time. It's really cool to see this. So this crossed my desk because Leafly reviewed Woody Harrelson's new store called The Woods, and it's located in West Hollywood. What's really interesting and why I wanted to bring it up today, not just, another cannabis retailer, cannabis dispensary, but how it's positioned. And it's really positioned as kind of a very much a boutique store focused on high quality, kind of farm to table, so to speak, cannabis from local cannabis farmers with merchandise that says, support your local weed farmer. And, carrying brands that are maybe less well known across the state of California, but, award-winning, high-quality stuff. It's a unique model I just haven't seen that much of out there.
Yeah, it does feel like it's taking a fresh take. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? Cannabis consumers, I do think, live at an intersection where they're probably pretty mindful about the sources of their food, kind of like the Portlandia, like where is this chicken from? And then they do the whole thing, tying it all together so you can know your chicken. And this notion of knowing your cannabis, it's definitely been something that's been pretty popular in Northern California, just trying to understand sun-grown cannabis. Sun-grown cannabis is more eco-friendly in many, many ways, especially in the legal market where they're not using pesticides and things like that. And I don't know, I feel like when I go to LA, I'm a plant-based consumer in all forms and fashions, the things I eat and the cannabis I consume. I know it's a big movement down there, this idea of, hyper-local, being able to track your entire supply chain of what it is that you're consuming or wearing, the slow fashion movement too, moving away from H&M. And West Hollywood, frankly, has the SES kind of the disposable income, people who are shopping there, dining there, spending time there, can afford to potentially participate in more of a craft, organic, sun-grown kind of a experience around cannabis. And I do think it's pretty on brand for, as you said, it's on brand for him. He's been a long advocate of cannabis. I was telling you before the podcast, and my brother will crack up to hear this, is he was really big into industrial hemp in the 80s. And my mother was so mystified by why the law won't allow for industrial hemp for fashion, for plastic, for paper, for all of these resources. Even the things you swirl your coffee with, you could use industrial hemp compounds for that. And so there's so many things. And I remember her mom in a very kind of dorky way just being what are they worried he's going to eat his jeans? I thought that was a really cute thing that she said. And it maybe that's where I started my kind of conscientious objector mindset around the legal characteristics of cannabis and hemp, and Woody has been long out in front of this and speaking as an advocate for it. So I think, as long as things kind of work from, and I hate the word authenticity, but it does feel like it is authentic to who he is and what he's been standing for. And I know he's a celebrity, but it seems like he really does kind of live this. And I know you and I spoke about it when we did the houseplant. Was it Architectural Digest that did a tour of the houseplant?
That's right.
Yeah. And just, even I didn't realize, I knew Seth Rogen was a massive cannabis consumer and fan. And, but even I didn't know how he came to designing the ashtrays and how he had this massive, old ashtray collection from all over the world, and what he's figured out about the pragmatic design of ashtrays versus what looks good with ashtrays. And I'm like, this is a person who actually consumes cannabis, which is awesome. And he's building products around his own experiences consuming cannabis. So for me, that really resonated. I still have to buy one because I really want one, but I haven't done it yet. So I think there's something interesting here. I will say this, West Hollywood, I do believe, has a pretty high density of cannabis retail. So it will be very much, to your question, is it differentiated enough? Is it offering something that's enough to drive people to that door versus the other myriad doors in the neighborhood?
Right. And yeah, maybe it can, right? Because of this positioning, because it's focused on outdoor, sustainably sourced kind of cannabis products, high quality, award winning, that'll be enough to get people there versus somewhere else. It just does seem to be a bit of a differentiator. And to me, I'm in Seattle here, and most of the stores sell the same products. It's pretty rare where you can go into a location and have a exposure to something that isn't available at another store down the street. And it really comes down to maybe that experience at the location, the shopping experience, less around like what they carry. This kind of stuff is super exciting for me to see, because I can only hope that, there's more of these types of opportunities going forward. And another thing, this is not cheap stuff, right? These products are, smaller batch craft. And I think that will, be a higher ticket price for these types of items. And there's a photo on Leafly from the opening. It's got Woody Harrelson there with the Swami Select founders, posing. And I pulled some data on Headset here for Swami Select, and their sales are much smaller, right, than a lot of flower brands. In California, and looking at California in aggregate, their market share is much less than 1%, I'll say. But their price point is significantly higher, average price versus the market. But it's award winning, right? And the way they produce it, and they have a great story on how they produce it on their website. And you got Woody Harrelson posing with them. That's a good thing, I think, especially in this world where we have all this price pressure happening in California. I mean, happening in every market, right? Where it's just, lower and lower prices, discounting to kind of counterposition against that pricing trend, and just have, expensive stuff that's high end, and targets a certain client, and if that can be successful, West Hollywood obviously is a certain type of client, but, there's audiences like that all over California or all over other, states and provinces that, maybe warrant having locations like this that target, just a boutique size with a selected offering of, handpicked products that are going to be good, and you're probably going to attract a certain audience. And there's something to be said for that, right? If I know and I can go in and it's purely curated on what Woody Harrelson thinks is good, that's pretty exciting, and I'd love to see more of this.
I agree. I have for a while said I hope our industry can avoid becoming what beer became for a while, which was like basically Coors and Budweiser, or even coffee, which was like Folgers and Maxwell House. Like the amount of options we have in the ways that we can participate with smaller brands in so many categories. I'm really hopeful that our industry doesn't go all the way down to that, and then we have to rebuild the craft industry. I'm hoping we can retain the craft industry as we continue to go. I mean, I know I buy a lot of local and sun-grown cannabis because I do shop in Northern California. And so like Spark, especially like in their dispensary, which is right outside of the Sonoma Square, which is where a lot of small craft wineries are, they do try to feature some of the local Sonoma growers because of exactly what you're saying. Like you can go to most stores and get a Kiva, Wild Gummy, Stizzy, those top brands, almost everybody can have that. So you have that because that's like table stakes. You don't want people to not come because they look to replenish those things. But then you need to think about what you can offer that creates something unique to try to get people coming back, and what does kind of tie in well with your retail brand. Maybe you are more of like a 7-Eleven kind of a cannabis store, and you're just going to have the basics of what people buy in the market. And that's smart too. But I'm excited to see differentiations in strategies and differentiations in brand offerings. And I did see that picture too with Swami. And I will say Swami grows really good cannabis. So it works. There is a quality thing there for sure. And, there's this whole thing in our industry they call like bud porn, where you get like the pictures of the like super frosty, crystally, indoor, perfect buds. And that's awesome. And I think that's cool to like worship at the altar of those beautiful, cones and everything. And that's cool. I actually think and have seen really beautiful cannabis grown outside, and the romanticism of walking through a cannabis farm outside under the beautiful California sun is like, I'm never going to get over that. I will always. It's just like walking. To me, I could walk through a vineyard 100 times and still think it's beautiful every single time. So I think there's something really neat about this, and I'm hoping it gets some traction, because I think that gives me hope, to your exact point, that we'll see more variation across the markets.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned, Northern California and the wine area, and there's a reason why people are traveling to Napa, to Santa Rosa. There's a reason why, the Mendocino area, the Emerald Triangle, has existed for so long, right? And it's so well known in the cannabis community. And so kind of leaning into that and really focusing on brands that also lean into that, I think is a really cool way to differentiate. Do you think that if Woody's name wasn't associated, if it was just, hey, this is the Woods and it's a new store in West Hollywood, it had the same curated list, like, would we still be as excited?
I think it's definitely giving a leg up. And I don't know. I like the name for what it's worth. Like, it's like it's Woody, West Hollywood, and there was something else that I was going to say about the Woods. But anyway, it's getting at the Woods there, and I think it's clever.
All the cannabis that they sell is grown in the woods.
But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it's predicated on having a Woody like item associated with it?
I do think it does help with the marketing, right? It gets articles written about it. It gets across our radar. But I don't think that the model, I think if I encountered a store like that and it wasn't associated with a celebrity brand, I'd still be pretty excited just to see that. But yeah, it doesn't hurt to have someone like Woody Harrelson. And again, that authenticity, I think, is really what puts it over the top. And not that, other celebrity brands, those names and mini brands are very authentic, but maybe the association with the brand is less than authentic. You see like Seth Rogen, like you mentioned, coming from the relationship with Canopy Growth, and I think that was kind of licensed, the house plan, and I don't know how much involvement they had longer term, but then pulling back from that and then starting that up directly in California to be closer to it. That really shows that kind of passion for the category. And I think, Woody Harrelson, obviously all the years, all the hemp genes that he could eat, and coming together to a store today in West Hollywood is pretty exciting. And speaking of Seth Rogen, he was also in this season of Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? So you got Seth Rogen, cannabis brand. You got Woody Harrelson, cannabis brand. Now I'm waiting for my Larry David cannabis brand.
Well, I think it would be amazing. And I would hope that they would really lean in on, the awkwardness of Curb Your Enthusiasm and do something really cheeky and funny with that. I would definitely try out some Larry David weed.
Thanks for listening to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset. For more information on Headset, visit headset.io.